Okay, 4.2 starts with talking about some properties of operations. We're going to talk about 3 properties of operations. The first one being the associative property. The second one being the commutative property. And the third one being the distributive property. Okay, so for the first one, the associative property. What the associative property means is that if you see a problem written like this, and there are parentheses around 2 of the options, it means that you can rewrite it and still get the same answer if it helps you solve it. So the associative property says that in parentheses 2 times 3 and then times 4 is the same as 2 times 3 times 4. Okay, and how I know that's the same? Well, 2 times 3 is 6 times 4 is 24. And in the other problem, 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 12 is also 24. So the associative property says that if there are parentheses in the problem and you can't distribute, you can move those parentheses to the side a spot and still get the same answer if it helps you solve it. So what it looks like with letters is that A times B times C is the same as A times B times C. I just moved those parentheses over a spot and I'm still going to get the same answer. Okay, the associative property also applies to adding. So 2 plus 3 in parentheses plus 4 can be written as 2 plus 3 plus 4. 2 plus 3 is 5 plus 4 is 9. 3 plus 4 is 7, and 2 plus 7 is also 9. So you can see how they are. You do get the same answer even though you move those parentheses. And this will come more in handy when we're doing algebra, like we're going to be doing in 4.2. And what that looks like with letters is that A plus B in parentheses plus C is the same as A plus B plus C in parentheses. Okay, the next property we're going to talk about is the commutative property. And what that means is that you can rearrange 2 numbers as long as you're multiplying and adding and get the same answer. So 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. A times B is the same as B times A. 2 plus, this should be a 3. 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2. And A plus B is the same as B plus A. So all these properties apply with adding and multiplying. They don't apply with subtracting and dividing, however. Okay, so 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5. And 2 plus 3 is 5. So we can see that we get the same thing. The last property that I need to talk about is the distributive property. And we've done some of these in the bell ringer already. So what the distributive property means is that if there is a number directly in front of the parentheses, that you take that number and you multiply it by both of the terms on the inside. So we can rewrite it as 2 times 3x plus 2 times 4. And then order of operations says we have to do the multiplying before we do the adding. So 2 times 3x is 6x plus 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, we can't add the 8 and the 6x because they're not like terms, but we'll get to that later. So in letters, this means that A distributed to B and C becomes AB plus AC. We can't actually multiply 2 different letters, but we can put them side by side, which means to multiply. So associative property, as long as there are numbers and a parentheses where you're not distributing, you can move those parentheses side to side to make the problem easier to solve. Commutative means you can change the order of the numbers. So even if one of these was negative, let's make this -2 right here. We can still rewrite it. It would just be 3 times -2. Okay, and with adding, if the 2 is negative here, we would just need to make sure that the 3 is always positive and the 2 is always negative. So we can have 3 plus -2, or we could have 3 minus 2, which are also the same thing. Okay? Distributive property, take that number that is directly beside the parentheses out front, multiply it by the two terms on the inside, and figure out what your new problem is. Those are the three distributive properties that you need to know.